Guys, what's up? This is Blue. It's like 4:30 a.m. right now. Just got back from LA a few hours ago when I figured I wanted to try and get this off my chest now while I had a few extra minutes after I just got done with some other work I was doing. So I want to put this video out to kind of inform people that have been detached from the competitive community or that are sort of getting into it now or getting back into Guild Wars with the new expansion announcement, just to kind of let you know what's been happening in the PvP community in the past few months, especially because tomorrow, assuming of course I get this video uploaded today, will be the WTS Invitational qualifiers, and more so than the previous season, this season is looking really interesting just because of some of the stories that are forming. There's a lot of, I hesitate to say drama, but there's a lot of interesting storylines kind of coming out of the woodwork now, which I think are going to make not only these qualifiers but the grand finals in Boston too really interesting to see, just as a kind of finisher to this story here. So I kind of just wanted to put this out as a bit of an update, like let everybody know like what's been going on, what are the storylines, so that hopefully if you do tune in tomorrow, not just for the Stronghold preview, but to actually watch the tournament as well, you can be a little bit more informed as to who's playing. You're not just going to sit there and go, well, I don't know who these guys are. Hopefully you can go into that and maybe even have someone to root for too. So starting off with the European teams, there's really only one major story to come out of EU, but it's a big one. For anyone who's not already aware, one of the most popular teams in Europe goes by the name of the Civilized Gentlemen. They've been around for over a year now, and up until this kind of sector of competition, their roster has remained the same, giving them probably the most consistent roster in Guild Wars 2 competitive history. They had the longest running single roster out of any other team. I think even Team Paradigm didn't have it for as long as they did. I might be wrong on that, but I'm kind of just spitballing here. However, that's recently changed. As of, I want to say it's about a month and a half ago now, they have split up. The roster has been split exactly in half, and now only three out of the six full-time TCG members, of course one of them was their sub, is now actually on the TCG roster, and the other three have gone to a new team, and that team is now going by the name of Orange Logo. But it gets even more interesting in that 2 out of the 5 players on this new team also played with Rom previously, and Rom was an older member now of TCG, now on the Team Orange Logo. So Rom also played with 2 of these players before on the old Cheese Mode squad, not the kind of newer Cheese Mode squad if you've seen tournaments in the recent months, but I'm talking like a year plus ago. He used to play with them. So why did this happen? Like, why did all of a sudden the most successful European team in a very long time, and easily the most popular European team, suddenly just split in half? General consensus seems to be is that there was just a lack of commitment from the members that were remaining on the team. So from Helseth and Sizer, just that they weren't able to commit enough time to practicing. I think that a lot of people assume that that is the reason why they weren't able to take first place at the WTS China finals as well, because they just did not have enough time to practice, with the two of those players maybe having too much real life commitment or just not being able to commit to practice schedules, and that put them behind by quite a bit. I think that post-China, the team was willing to work together, because we didn't see that split up happen immediately after China. We saw that split up happen a few weeks or about a month and a half after the China event actually ended, and as we were getting more back into the sort of ESL weekly and monthly cups. So it was a bit interesting to see that breakdown happen, like all of a sudden. There wasn't any drama behind either. Both teams kind of just agreed to go their separate ways. They understood the disagreements between each other. They understood, of course, that things weren't really going to work out, so they just split it. And it was probably one of the least dramatic team breakups in quite some time, but it's still interesting to see because, as I said, they've been together for the longest time. There really isn't a team that's been together as long as those guys, so to see them all of a sudden just split in 2, and it really almost happened overnight, was a very dramatic thing to see. So now, going into the European qualifier, we're going to be looking at Seed 1 and Seed 2 being the new team, Orange Logo, and the Civilized Gentlemen being right there. So those two teams are looking like, assuming the seeds are correct, they're going to be mashing head-to-head in the Grand European Final. So it's going to be that old TCG versus new TCG feel going on there, and we're going to see, like I said, which team is actually the better one and which team will actually be going to the LAN, while the old or the new boys kind of gets left in the dust. It's a very interesting thing to see there, and I think that that's a story that a lot of the European viewers are going to want to see kind of wrapped up there. Who is the better team? As there's already debates going on in Twitch chats, ORNG versus TCG. You see people fighting over who's the best team, and I think it's going to make for a very interesting ending to that sort of debate that's been going on there. There is other teams too in Europe that are competing pretty well. 55 HE Monks is also looking like they're a very strong contender, but I personally don't think they're going to have, due to roster issues with a lot of their members being under 18, they have to get a couple fill-ins for the actual main event. So I'm not really sure if 55 HE Monks is going to be able to pull off, but they've actually been doing pretty well, I think, with that new roster when they've gone up against the new TCG Pug. So there's a bit of a swing contender there too, in the fact that we could actually see 55 HE Monks come in with the complete upset and complete denial to the finisher of that story between TCG and ORNG. And kind of come in there, and they could be a surprise second place finish there too, maybe even first place if they manage to beat out ORNG, as I think they have taken a couple victories versus them before. But it's going to be very interesting in Europe. It's very close competition between mainly those three teams, so be sure to check that one out. Now as we go over to NA has a lot more drama going on. It's not as civilized, not trying to make a pun there, but it's not as civilized as the European kind of the European drama has been. So as we talk about what's been happening in North America, the main focus is of course around the top team, which is the Absurd. And before we go into anything else, it should be said, going into the North American qualifiers, Absurd has about a 99% chance of winning the qualifiers, so they are easily looking at a safe spot. And the reason for this is that they have won literally, I can pretty much say that every single tournament that's happened, every single tournament that they have been in that's happened after the WTS Season 1 finals, I think that they have won every single tournament they've been in. So every single ESL Weekly Cup, they've won all 3 of the ESL North American Monthly Cup, so they've been raking into cash. Not only did they win the 5K each from China and 25K total, but they've also won 3 consecutive times now, $1,000 total from those monthlies. So as I said, they've just been kicking ass, and no one's even come close to them. Like, not a single team in North America has been able to even get close to beating them. I think every single time they faced a team, it's been a 2-1. Last time there's been a 2-1, I can't even remember, to be honest. There might have been 1 or 2 2-1s in the mix there, but for the most part, they have been kicking some serious ass. So going into this tournament, these guys, they don't have anything to worry about. So they've got first place set, but the thing to remember is that because this WTS final is going to be hosted in Boston, in North America, that means that not 1, but 2 North American teams get to go. So as a couple people are coining it now, this tournament really isn't going to be a battle for, you know, who's going to win it and who's going to get second. It's going to be really just the battle for second place. That's the most important aspect here now, because Absurd is essentially guaranteed a spot. Now what will be interesting, as you can pretty much obviously figure out at this point, is that if Absurd doesn't qualify, that's going to be quite a dramatic outcome, because when you consider the fact that they've been essentially undefeated for the past 2 to 3 months now, the fact that they would all of a sudden drop the most important tournament to come for the next 3 to 4 months here now would be absolutely astounding. So if that happens, things are going to get pretty crazy, I assume, in the North American community there. But more than likely they have their spot. So then it becomes who takes second place. And from here we have a whole plethora of teams and a whole load of kind of drama there surrounding another team which goes by the name Dodge or Die. Actually not going by that name anymore. They've changed their name as of last week. Dodge or Die, and are as they will be known during the qualifiers, the Hail Mary. And this is Ostrogex's team. So for anyone that watched the WTS Season 1 finals in China, you will have noted that Ostrogex was on the Absurd. So why all of a sudden was he kicked off? This happened, for anyone that isn't already aware, this happened like literally 2 days after everyone got home from China. Ostrogex was removed from the Absurd roster and Nos was placed on. This was essentially decided before they even went to China. Whether they were going to win or lose, Ostrogex would be kicked off the roster, despite his best efforts to stop this. And he is and remains very angry at the fact that this happened, and has essentially gone on literally every time he streams, every time he goes out in public, he essentially says, we're going to beat them. We're going to kick their ass. We're better than them, essentially. As his attempts to form a new team, he's tried so many times now. But the unfortunate thing is that every time he's tried to get a roster together, it just hasn't gone so well. The roster that he's formed for this new team, by the name of Dodge or Die / the Hail Mary, has just changed rosters so many times. And it really sucks for him, too, because you think about it. He wants this revenge versus his old teammates. He wants it so bad, but he's just been unable to get it. So going into this qualifier, he has a personal vendetta against the Absurd. I think that for this qualifier, it's really just going to be about making it in, because as I said earlier, his attempts to get a team and attempt to make his team strong, it hasn't really been going so well. The team has been beat out a few times by another squad, which we'll talk about in just a second, and it's really been putting kind of a hard time on him and the rest of his teammates here, as he really wants to go to Boston just so he can get his revenge versus his teammates. If he doesn't get there, it's going to be devastating for him, especially considering how pretty much like all in Ostrogix has gone in Guild Wars 2 now. Like, I'm pretty sure all he does is play the game, and that's like it. Like, I don't think he has a job or anything else. Ostrogix has gone full YOLO on the game, and if he doesn't make it, it's going to be rough times for him. But thankfully, despite those numerous roster changes, his team is one of the top contenders to get second place in the event. which of course would still qualify him for the main event in Boston at PAX East. But that team isn't the only one. There's one other squad which has been formed by SupCutie, and for anyone that kept up with the competitive community in the summer of 2013, SupCutie was the captain of the team that went by the name Absolute Legends at the time, and has continued to keep a kind of medium-level presence in the community. He's been winning a couple smaller titles and kind of getting in the 3rd to 4th to 2nd place ranges in a lot of the major tournaments too. He's been kind of floating around, but he hasn't really risen to that high level that he was at when he had the old Absolute Legends squad back in the summer of 2013. Well, he's got the potential to do it once more here now, as he has formed a squad by the name of the Dankening, and that squad's actually really good. That squad has a very good chance, I feel, of taking 2nd place as well, and knocking Ostrich Eggs' not only not Ostrich Eggs' chance of revenge at Boston kind of by the wayside, but putting his team in the qualifier and putting his team in the grand finals too. So that's another strong roster, and it's going to be a really interesting battle to see who comes out on top there, because again, Ostrich Eggs' team has been constantly switching up rosters, which has really hurt them. The final roster, by the way, if you do recognize most of the player names in the community, is going to have Ostrich Eggs, obviously, Muffins, a Thief, who usually plays with SupCutie, so that was a bit of a surprising thing to see that Thief wouldn't be playing for SupCutie's squad. But Muffins will be joining Ostrich Eggs' team. We also have a Candace joining him, CMC, the Elementalist, he streams quite a bit, if you know his stream, will be joining that team, and their 5th and final member is going to be Zeus, actually, Zeus the Elementalist, and if they stay true to the comp, that's another interesting part of their team too, is that Zeus is playing Fresher Elementalist as part of the main comp. Usually Fresher Ellie, while it is a very fun and a very exciting build to spectate, normally it's not used on a main roster just because of the fact that it's very hard to keep alive and it's very, very squishy, but the burst potential trade-off, if you can make it worth, is absolutely amazing. So to see that comp work would actually be a really excellent thing to see, but Zeus will be joining that squad as the 5th, and that makes up their full roster. And then of course, like we said, it's going to be a very close battle, as that roster has only solidified itself within the past about a week and a half now, so they're still kind of trading themselves up, whereas SupCutie squad, while they may be slightly newer in terms of the overall team, they have kept a fairly consistent roster, and they've been getting better and better and better, so it's going to be really awesome to see that all kind of culminate into that one probably grand final as we get to Saturday night. There's a couple other contenders too. They're kind of just sitting down there. I don't think they have as strong as a chance as the previous two teams that I've just discussed, but there is also a small chance for them to wiggle their way into, as they have made a couple kind of lucky victories, or not, I shouldn't say lucky, they've made a couple kind of surprise victories in the ESL Weekly Cups, and sometimes even the ESL Monthly Cups as well. So it's really kind of going to be an unpredictable battle in North America. I think it'll mainly be between those two teams, but really anything can happen, and I think it's going to be a very interesting stream to check out. So that wraps things up for the qualifier, but there's also another interesting point to discuss here for when we actually get to the WTS Grand Finals in Boston, and I think that is going to be Absurd. Like, this is mainly around Absurd, because I talked about earlier, they've been completely undefeated for 2-3 months now, essentially. They haven't had any competition whatsoever. The team come close to beating them. The question becomes, is that a good thing or a bad thing for them? Because when you look at Europe, the competition has been so much closer, and you would think that with the competition being that close, with all these teams being within such close proximity of a skill gap to each other, and with different teams taking victories each and every week and each and every monthly, you think that the skill bar is constantly going to be raised over there in Europe, that all these teams are just going to be getting better and better and better, whereas that doesn't really happen in North America, because you have just the Absurd on top and everyone else is floating down here, and they're all trying to get up but they can never get there, but the Absurd as well is just sitting on top, and they're not getting any higher. Their skill is, technically speaking, never growing. So it's going to be a very interesting question, assuming of course that Absurd does make it. It's going to be a very interesting question to see that, will the European team be the strongest, or will we be looking at a North American contender once again, just because of the fact that arguably the competition in Europe has been a lot stronger, whereas in North America it's just been this one team dominating. And like I said, that could be a double-edged sword. That could be great because they could be constantly just, too good for anyone, including these European teams, or their skills could be dulling just because there just isn't any competition on North America. That's going to be another very interesting thing to see, how the Absurd specifically faces off against the North American squad when we get to those WTS finals in Boston. That of course is still over a week away. What is the important thing is the qualifiers this Saturday, guys. So once again, if you kind of are interested now, based on what I've just told you, it's going to start this Saturday. The European stream starts at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and 16 Central European Time. And the North American stream, which is going to be hosted by myself as well as Grouch, will start at, I believe, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Eastern, and 23 CET on the same day, just a little bit later on. If any of the times I just said are incorrect, I will there'll be something on the screen here with the right time. So once again, guys, that's it. That's about all I have to say on the matter. If you like this kind of video, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to do more of them. These videos are fairly simple to put out, and I kind of like just talking about the game, talking about the scene. It's obviously a fairly large part of my life, so being able to sit here and talk for about 15 minutes now about certain aspects of it I find it fun. So anyway, guys, thanks once more for tuning in, and yeah, that's about all I have to say for now. So thanks, and see you later.